Today I'm going to be making bread, and to me this loaf is the most delicious and it is the most nutritious bread on the planet, unless you are using what I am using and then go and make sourdough. Those of you that aren't familiar with this and you want to get started, maybe you feel a little bit overwhelmed, this will be a video that you can come and watch that's going to walk you through it. I'm going to tell you my trials and failures and what has made it super successful. We're going to start with the most valuable player. This is the MVP. I have the Wonder Mill. I bought this 18 years ago from Bread Beckers in Woodstock, Georgia. So I'm going to show you how this works. This is where the grain goes in, and this is where the flour comes in. And it's connected by this little tube right here. And it comes with an extra one of these, which helps to keep the flour contained and keep it from going all over the place. There's a little hole right here. I love the way that this stacks. I have traveled with this and it's fairly light, so I appreciate that as well. This used to be white, but age has set in. So we're gonna pop that right in there. And now we're going to talk about the wheat. For this particular loaf, I am going to be using hard red wheat and hard white wheat. I'm going to be mixing them together, and I'm going to be using twice as much red because it adds more protein. And if you have heard the wart stories where people talk about how they started eating the bread and maybe they had warts, I mean, this is for real, and they vanished within a few weeks. It's from the hard red because it's very high in vitamin E, and vitamin E kills viruses. So I have another video with Sue Becker where we actually talk about that. So let me get the wheat. I'm going to be using wheat from 4 Generations. This is the Sky Dance, and so we will call this our hard red. And this is the Butler's Gold. This is the hard white. I don't know what I just said. It's been a long day. By the way, I don't know if I already said this, but I got home from work and I thought, you know what? I have makeup on, my hair is done, and I have on a cute dress. So I might as well make a video, right? So it is kind of late and the sun is getting ready to set. So you're gonna see the light change throughout the video, but I have promised some people that I would get this out there, and I needed to make it happen. Plus, I need bread, so what a perfect time to do it. And then tonight, I'll get to eat a slice of that warm, yummy bread, which is just so, it's the best. It's like dessert. I want to tell you a little bit about 4 Generations. So 4 Generations, they are a farm out in Oklahoma where they grow their own wheat. They're not just retailers, they grow their own wheat. They are from heirloom seeds. They are non-GMO, organic, and they have been tested for glyphosate, and they are glyphosate free, which is something very important because we can easily get glyphosate toxicity. If you have heard of Roundup, there you go. And we know that Roundup has been proven now to cause cancer. So we don't want any glyphosate. I will leave a link below where you can order your wheat from 4 Generations. And if you use my code intyrehealing, you get a discount. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and grind this, and what we're gonna want is about 6.5 cups of ground flour. When you are grinding your wheat, it's going to make more than you measure to grind. So for instance, if you measure 2 cups to grind, it's gonna give you about 3 cups of flour. We're gonna grind 4.5 cups of flour so that we have what we need for the bread. On mine, we have the pastry setting, the bread setting, and the coarse. The pastry is what we're going to use for pancakes, tortillas, biscuits, muffins, things like that. And then bread, obviously for bread. Coarse, I don't know what that's for because I haven't used it. So let's go ahead and mill some flour. after the wheat has gone through the mill, you just count to 3 and then it's time to turn it off. So here is that beautiful, wonderful, nutrient flour. I'm gonna get this out of my way. And by the way, my name is Kimberly McIntyre. For those of you new to my channel, I am a nutrition and wellness coach. I coach clients. I actually have programs that they go through to learn how to prevent disease, overcome disease, live healthy, clean lives. And you know, what does that mean? I think it's so funny how, well, it's not funny, but so many people, they'll say, oh, I eat healthy, and they don't understand what's wrong. And I'll say, can I see your food journal? And then I get to explain to them some of the reasons why they feel so bad. And a lot of it starts right there with food. So if you would like to know more about my programs, you can check them out on my website, which is intyrehealing.com, which will be linked below. And now I'm gonna go and get the mixer. This is the Bosch, and this is a fabulous machine. I started making bread with the smaller KitchenAid. You know, there's a smaller KitchenAid, and there's KitchenAid with a hand crank. So I started with the small KitchenAid, which served my family well for a while. And then years later, my husband bought me the bigger KitchenAid, which was fabulous. And then years later, my husband bought me the Bosch, which is fabuloso. It is the Cadillac, in my opinion. It's something about the way this paddle moves, and of course the horsepower is just amazing. So, better loaves, and that's exactly what happens. So we're gonna go ahead and start adding ingredients. I will tell you, if you are interested in purchasing a Bosch, I'm gonna leave my link below so that you can get a discount, and my code for that one is intyrehealing as well. I have my water heating over there in my water kettle, so I'm gonna run and get that real quick. You want your water warm. I heat mine to 120 degrees. I have a little setting on the kettle, and I will actually put the Chefman link in the description below. This is the most fabulous water kettle. It has temperature settings so that you can change them. And I put mine on 120 degrees. Some of my failures have been burning up the yeast. And that is tragic, because then you don't have great bread and it's like a brick. So what you want to make sure is that your water is the correct temperature so that you don't have that problem, because it is super disappointing when you have spent all this time and all of these ingredients and then you burn your yeast. So be very cautious. The other problem can be that your water is not warm enough. Anything that is hot, I prefer to put it in glass just to make sure that I don't have any plastic leaching in. Measure out 1.5. So for this bread, it's going to be 1.5 cups of water. The next thing I'm going to be adding is 1/3 cup of oil. I prefer olive oil. I used to think I preferred butter, but I don't. I love the texture that the olive oil adds, and I am using palmetto olive oils. If you guys have watched my videos, you know how much I love palmetto olive oil. And if you are interested in ordering their products, if you are first time, you can use my code, and I'll put that in the link below, and you can get 15% off. I am also using 1/3 cup of honey, and I love to get these big containers from Bread Beckers. If you live anywhere around this area, you can order these. There should be a co-op near you, and you can order these from them and have them dropped off at the co-op, and then you save a lot on shipping. 1/3 cup of honey. I have used sucanat and I have used honey crystals. I don't want a really sweet bread. If I want it sweet, then I'll make a cinnamon loaf, which I'm actually going to make a cinnamon loaf and a regular loaf. The honey gives it such a good texture. It just, to me, it just helps to make it a little bit more moist, less dense. Now we're going to be adding 2 teaspoons of salt And this is another thing that you don't want to forget. I have forgotten salt before and it just tastes so bland. You really just want to throw it away, but you've spent too much money and it has nutrients. So that was 2 teaspoons of salt, and we're going to add 1 egg. You don't have to add an egg, but to me it just helps give it a lot better texture. Now I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of lecithin, and this is not from soy, it's from sunflower. And the lecithin really does help to give, again, an excellent texture. And you don't have to use it, it's fine without it, but it's amazing with it. I don't add gluten to my bread, and so this just helps to give it a little bit more fluff. And you know, a lot of people don't like bread like this because it doesn't, you know, they're used to store-bought. Well, this helps it to be a little bit more fluffy like store-bought, but yet still full of amazing ingredients. So now we're gonna add some flour, and we're gonna add 2 cups right now. Now it is time to add 1 tablespoon of yeast, and you want to make sure that you take good care of your yeast, because if your yeast is inactive, then we don't have a good loaf of bread, and I have done that too. If your yeast is old, if you have not stored it properly, I store mine in a glass jar in the refrigerator. I have heard that that is the best way to keep it long term, and I think it lasts about 6 months. So you need to do a little bit of research, but I'm always cautious. And if you go on Google, you can Google the yeast test. You can actually test your yeast to make sure that it's good to go. And now we're gonna give that a little spin. And while it is spinning, we're gonna add the flour until it becomes well combined and we start to see that ball forming. And then we're gonna turn it off, touch it, just see. And you wanna add your flour slowly, about a 1/2 cup at a time, maybe even 1/4 cup, just to be on the more cautious side, because you do not want to add too much, because then it will make a dry loaf. Another thing that I have done before. So first of all, you see how the dough has pulled away from the sides. So that's a sign that it's getting where you want it to be. It looks wet, it's a little wet, but I'll be honest, I would rather err on the side of not enough flour than too much. But you can see it glistening, it's still definitely too wet. Now we're going to let it knead for about 6 minutes. If you don't have to have this machine. You can knead it yourself, but if we're going to knead it ourselves, we're going to need to knead it for about 15 minutes. So, you know, that's fine. It's a nice little workout. I've done it many times, but I'm going to turn the machine on. I'm going to time it for 6 minutes, and then it's going to be time to proof. Okay. So that is done. So I'm going to get this out of the way. So a while ago, I think I got interrupted and my mind went somewhere else, but the Bosch can have many attachments, and I don't know what they all are, but this does come with another set of mixer things. I'll show you. These things. So this sits right on the top, and this sits right on the top, and there's 2 that attach, 1 on each side, so if you're making a cake or something like that. And it also has this fabulous thing that scrapes the side and the inside the whole time that it's going. I know that it has a blender attachment. I think it has a food processor attachment. Okay, so I left my flour out because we're probably going to need a little bit of that later, but now it is time to proof, and I want you to look inside here. So you can see what that looks like right now, and we're just going to take the paddle out, get all of that dough off of there. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my fingers. So you can see it's just a little bit sticky, which is perfect, because if it wasn't sticky at all, by the time it got finished, it would be a little too dry. I'm just going to pull this together. Well, I guess it's going to be easier to go this way. I'm going to pull it together on one side, get all the dough on one side. I promise this is going to be perfect. And I just proof it in this bowl. There's many ways that you can do it. I'll talk about that in a second, but first I'm just going to get it in the oven. My oven has a proof option, so it heats it up to a perfect 100 degrees. You don't have to do it in the oven. You can just cover it, make sure that it's in a somewhat warm place, no draft. So I'm going to go ahead and get mine in the oven. Probably nobody's wondering what this is doing back here, but I'm going to tell you. So I borrowed it to see if you could proof and make a nice loaf of bread in a toaster oven. And you can. So I'm going to be teaching classes showing people how to do this, and we have to have something convenient to bake in. Our first proof is done, and now it's time to do our second knead. Then we'll do a second proof, and then it'll be time to bake the bread, and then it'll be time to eat it, and I can't wait. So first we're going to remove it, and it feels lovely, just like I want it to. That perfect amount of softness. So you don't want to overproof or underproof your dough. All of it can ruin your bread. Look at that. Oh my goodness, it feels so perfect. Just perfect. So we're gonna be getting all that air out of there. So I like to measure mine. I like to weigh mine. Cinnamon bread. We use this one for the regular bread. Not much difference. Okay, I'm going to clean this up. Get this out of the way. I really like to use parchment paper. This is my favorite bread pan I have ever used. The way that it's shaped, and it just seems to give it a better rise. This way I don't have to worry, it doesn't stick at all. Okay, we're just going to shape this into the loaf, roll it, pat it, mark it with a V, and throw it in the oven, and truly it is for baby and me. Because my baby loves my bread. My grandbaby. Why do I go to the work when all you have to do is this? Put it in there. I'm going to go ahead and score this because I like little lines, which is fun. Just something different. And we're going to sprinkle the top of this with everything but the bagel, which is just so delicious. And when you want to add stuff, you can either use an egg wash or you can just use water. Not knocking on sourdough, but I kind of am. I think it's funny when people talk about how much healthier sourdough bread is, but yet they're making it with white flour and white sugar. How do you get nutrients out of something that doesn't have any nutrients? I just don't think you can. Plus you have to babysit. I'm not babysitting. So you just spray the top of your bread with water. Put whatever you want on there. So I'm doing the everything but the bagel from Trader Joe's. And ooh, it smells so good. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pop this in the oven while we work on that one. Oven is still on proof. Okay, now we're gonna do the yummy, the amazing cinnamon bread. And I am using sucanat, which is sugar cane natural. It still retains nutrients. And I gotta tell you guys, so I've tested this wheat, this sucanat on diabetes 1 and 2. And both of them could eat 2 muffins without having a huge glucose spike. That's pretty exciting, and that says a lot about the wheat and how this, you know, doctors say sugar, sugar. That's not what the tests are showing. It's exciting. Nutrients matter. So whenever you're eating something that has nutrients, you cannot compare it to something that is void of nutrients. Okay, so now we're just gonna put some sucanat on here and some cinnamon. Get that out there. I like to get it as flat as I can so that I have as many rolls of delicious cinnamon and sucanat as possible. And also, just so you know, which probably most of you already know this, but cinnamon is excellent anti-inflammatory, helps to boost metabolism. It is so good for you. Get that cinnamon and sugar. Ooh, it's like, makes me feel rich. And it smells good. It smells so good. You know, the other thing about cinnamon is it actually tricks your taste buds, kind of makes you think it's sweet, but it's not. Cinnamon is amazing. Now I'm just gonna roll, baby, roll. As tight as you can. Then you're gonna want your seam at the bottom of the loaf, kind of pinch it. And then tuck. Now we're gonna put it in the pan, put it to bed. Put that in the oven. And guess what? It's another 40 minutes. So we're gonna let that proof. Bread loves moisture. So I take my spray bottle and occasionally I'll just spray the sides of the oven. Maybe a little bit, we're not soaking the bread, but just like a mist that will kind of go over the bread. And it's gonna help to give a fabulous rise. And we'll talk about a few more things when it's time to bake the bread, because a couple more tricks up my sleeve. So proofing is done and it's time to bake the bread. So I am going to turn the oven on 350 degrees while the bread is still in there. You don't take it out, and the bread will rise even a little bit more. So it's looking fantastic and I cannot wait to pull this out of the oven. I changed into my jammies because honestly, it's about bedtime and I'm just ready to be comfortable. So sorry for the outfit change. I'm setting the timer for 30 minutes so that I remember to check it. But what is going to tell us whether the bread is ready or not is the thermometer. You don't have to do this. You can time it for about 35 minutes. You can look at it, you know, look for that golden brown crust. For me, I like to know the internal temperature. You want it to be about 190 degrees, and then it is perfect. And that way I don't have to guess and be wrong. You know, my husband is very picky and he wants it to mimic store-bought bread. So if it is not baked completely, it's a little bit more doughy, he's completely out. So that's why this has become my absolute best friend. And you can use this type of thermometer. I just like the fact that it's digital. You can use this type of thermometer, you know, that will work too. So an internal temperature of about 190 degrees, unless it's a bread where you're using milk. When you're using milk, then you want it to be about 200. So we'll see, and I can't wait for this to come out. One more thing I almost forgot to tell you, and I would have been so sad. You want to cover it with foil for most of the time. I like to let mine bake for about 10 minutes uncovered, but if you don't, then the top can get too brown. That's not good. So I'm going to wait about 10 minutes and then I'm going to put the foil on top. While we have a few minutes and we're waiting for the bread to come out, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your comments, and I have taken your advice and people have put some comments below with some little tips and tricks that they have learned along the way. So if you are a well-seasoned bread maker, which you probably wouldn't have watched this entire video if you are, but if you are one of those, and I appreciate you for watching this, if you'll leave a comment below with any tips and tricks that maybe I didn't share today, something that maybe I don't even know, I would really appreciate it. Let's see. Almost. We're waiting for that magical 190 and we are almost there. Let's check the other one. So I've reached my hand in here and forgot it was hot. Not today, buddy. Not today, sucker. Let's check that temperature. Not quite, but this one's done, so we're gonna go ahead and take him out. She is a beauty, guys. She is a beaut. I could just stare at it forever. And it smells so good in this kitchen. I wish you were here. So the last tip that I have is you want to let your bread cool all the way before cutting it to get the best cut. It's really hard, and you can bet your bottom dollar I am going to be cutting this tonight and eating a slice because I have worked for it. Let's check the almost. So let it cool all the way before you put it in that bread bag. Glad it worked out today. How, of all days for it to have not worked out, right? I'm gonna go ahead and lift this one out. So see, if it wasn't in the parchment paper, I wouldn't be trying to remove it right now. Too big of a risk. So I'm gonna give you a little close-up of this so you can see the height, the formation. I just love this pan. I love it. I just want to sing that song by Stevie Wonder. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? I really mean that, guys. I don't know the rest of the words or I would continue to sing. I don't know which one I want. Regular. Cinnamon, regular. Cinnamon, regular.
Beautiful.
I know. So proud. Like a proud mama. It just smells so good. It smells so good. I'm gonna go for the cinnamon. You'd go for the cinnamon, right? I'm gonna give it 10 minutes and then I'm gonna cut it and let you see it. I wanna thank all of you for watching, and again, if you would please subscribe and hit that notification bell for more so that you'll be notified whenever new content comes out. I've got a lot of amazing things coming your way. You guys have a great day.